Hey, Anthony,
Yeah,
there's so much going on right now. Do you think things are getting better or worse?
both, but the details matter. On the surface, things are clearly getting worse, right? In Minneapolis and to a lesser degree elsewhere, ICE is now indiscriminately detaining people of color, including children, regardless of their legal status. They're also detaining people for filming them and stealing their devices to destroy evidence. They're tear gassing protesters and children. They're arresting journalists like Don Lemon, and that's all on top of the murders, which I'm sure are not over yet. So to say that it's not getting worse would be a lie, but how it's getting worse, and specifically how localized it is in Minneapolis, does matter. I think that if the Trump administration was genuinely getting stronger, what we would be seeing in Minneapolis would be spreading nationwide and becoming more methodical. Instead, it's staying concentrated to that city and getting more chaotic.
Why?
Because the Trump administration is desperate, and I think they're using Minneapolis as a bluff to scare the rest of the country into submission. The truth is, ICE simply doesn't have the numbers to do this nationwide, right? Minneapolis is just under 400,000 people, and despite everything that the city has been put through, it's still successfully resisting. So ICE is struggling and failing to suppress a mid-sized city while their internal morale plummets and hate for them nationwide spikes. Comparatively, Los Angeles, just the city by itself, has nearly 4 million people. New York has 8.5, and Chicago has almost 3. If ICE was trying to do the same things there that they were trying in Minneapolis, they wouldn't stand a chance. Nor do I think that Trump federalizing the National Guard solves the problem for him either, because unlike ICE, they have discipline, structure, and training that is designed to prevent the very behavior the administration is relying on with ICE to terrorize the country. So while what's happening in Minneapolis is very real, on a national scale, it's a lie, and people are starting to see that.
You think public opinion is changing?
Yes, on both sides. On the right, MAGA is cracking, especially after the latest Epstein file release. We have major MAGA influencers and politicians that are distancing themselves from the Trump administration, not necessarily because of a moral awakening, but because their bases are turning on Trump and they don't want to go down with him. And it's even more pronounced among younger MAGA voters, although for them I think it's economic rather than necessarily because of the Epstein files. Trump is actively making their futures worse, and his recent comments about wanting housing prices to rise instead of fall hit them especially hard. And younger conservatives are increasingly seeing Trump as being exactly what he claimed to oppose, part of the swamp. And we're seeing all of that at the ballot box too, right? Republicans are losing special elections left and right. Most recently, a Texas state Senate seat, which went plus 17 for the Republicans in 2024, went plus 14 for a Democrat. That's a 31-point swing in just over a year in Texas. On the left, the pressure is rising too. We have more celebrities speaking out. Again, not necessarily because of any moral change, but because their audiences are demanding it. We've had 2 major protests with over 5 million participants, and 2 very successful small-scale general strikes, first in Minnesota and then nationwide. And while strike numbers are harder to come by than protest numbers, I can say that here in LA, at least, the turnout and participation was noticeably higher than in the past, especially given the short notice that people had to prepare. So I do think the left is waking up.
So, what does all of this mean going forward?
Well, I do think it means things are going to get worse before they get better, right? The Trump administration is basically the political equivalent of a cornered rabid dog. But it also means that the administration is not nearly as powerful as they want you to believe. The louder threats, the blanket violence, and the constant backtracking that's happening are not signs of control, they're signs of panic. And at the same time, the momentum on the left is very real, but it's still fragile. And it will only hold if people continue to show up, pay attention, and do uncomfortable things instead of waiting for somebody else to solve the problem for them. And despite the clearly coordinated flood of hopeless comments online, I do still think there is a chance to solve the problem.